Hi, and welcome to the Scenic Route podcast. This is the show for building a successful and sustainable business on your terms. My name is Jen, and I'm a rebranding sociologist with a soft spot for rhubarb pie. Each week, I'll strive to expand your branding, business expertise, and mindset capacity. I'm so excited you're here, and now let's get into today's episode.
Priscilla Stephan is an intuitive business strategist, spiritual guide, and creator of the soul-fluent leadership archetypes, who helps soul-driven women entrepreneurs create sustainable, world-changing businesses that support the greater good. Through a powerful combination of practical business strategy, together with soul guidance in the Akashic records, she excels at helping people identify their zones of genius, step into powerful leadership, and live their purpose profitably. Priscilla's holistic and pragmatic approach to business and leadership allows her clients to live their dream lifestyle while confidently sharing their soul's work to make a big impact and increase their profit and growth. She is the author of the international best-selling book Soul Fluent Leadership Business Guide. Amplify your message, visibility, and profits by leveraging your archetype. So today on the Scenic Route podcast, I welcome Priscilla. Priscilla, how are you?
I am well. Welcome everyone to our call today. It's going to be a good one. So buckle up.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Buckle up because we're going to talk about all the things we feel a lot during the entrepreneurial journey, but we don't necessarily sign up for that. And that's the shitty feelings. Before we really dive into this but first, Priscilla, can you briefly walk us through your story? Like how you started and how you got where you're today, the pivotal crossroads, the big light bulb moments.
Those are great milestones along the journey. I would say, first of all, that I always was eager to know what I was meant to do with my life. And that was a constant search and ache. And I could never have imagined that I would be using the Akashic records and I would be an entrepreneur and I would be helping women create world-changing businesses from the soul out. Like how on earth do you even find out that exists, right? And so I was like, whoa.
It's surely not taught in any business book I read.
There you go. And you and I agree that we have tried, the formulas to success only to find that they fell flat.
Yes.
And that we needed to be inserted into our own businesses, our personalities, our values, our beliefs. And so it's been a long and winding road. So there have been 3 pivotal career changes with multiple dark nights of the soul. I started in the environmental policy field where I had a graduate degree in international environmental policy. I did that for a decade.
Wow.
Burned out. It crushed me because the whole industry kind of crushed my spirit. I just didn't feel like we were doing enough. And I didn't feel like the role I was playing was really making a difference. And that was something I just couldn't handle. And so, 10 years of experience, a very expensive graduate degree, internships, courses, and then what do I do with that? So then I started a business importing fashion accessories from my native Brazil. And that was 3 years that I did concurrently as I was still working in the environmental field. That's when I realized that I'd put my heart and soul and my sense of identity and worth into starting a business. But after 3 years, just financially was not viable.
Yeah.
And so closing it felt like I had closed a part of my soul and a part of my hopes and dreams. And that absolutely and utterly crushed me. So it was 2 successions of I'm burned out from the environmental field. I couldn't succeed in the business that I thought was going to be my escape route into a life of freedom and greater prosperity and creativity. And so then I spent 5 years in this muck of searching. And so what that meant was I asked myself, well, what transferable skills do I have in the environmental field, which can be very topically specific, niched into other areas because I've got to make money. I still got to find a way. And so because I'd done a lot of events, I stepped into event management, which is a stressful, chaotic, and neurotic industry.
Yes.
And that didn't go well either. I was fired twice. Within a year, I even tried to be an executive assistant, which was, I knew was a tragedy waiting to happen because that's not me. I so admire people that do that, but that's not my thing.
Yeah.
And so
always good to know what's yours.
Yeah. So, after all of these like gut punches, and just the pain of like feeling like I was waiting in time, just waiting for the next thing to appear. Then I got a postcard for Tony Robbins's events, and then I went to one of those, and then I was able to, because I had some money set aside, take a sabbatical for a year. And then I came across a health coaching certification, which I thought, well, I need some help with my own emotional eating stuff, so I'm going to do that. And then, of course, after a year, you've got a health coaching certification, but I really did it because I wanted to learn about food and for my own benefit. And hadn't planned it, but again, the freedom and flexibility of entrepreneurship seemed kind of like a good idea. Tried that for 3 years, but I knew coaching people on food wasn't it, because really what I was coaching them on was their careers, which is what actually lit me up. Because if you're, disordered eating or eating too much or comfort eating, in their cases, they were doing it to compensate for the fact that they weren't happy at their jobs.
Yeah.
They weren't, really prioritizing themselves. And so then I was again waiting for that next thing to emerge. And then the Akashic records kind of fell into my inbox literally one day when there was, like these cross promotions, how
you have a lot of things falling into your inbox. That's curious.
I know. I'll have more, please. Thank you. And so good things. And so then it was the thing about the Akashic records and healing your body story through a soul level.
Cut in? Yeah. Just like there might be listeners who have no concept whatsoever about the Akashic records. And if that's you, fear not. That was me. I don't know. I think 8 months ago, where I first heard of Akashic records. Could you just briefly give us like an idea what the Akashic records are?
Yeah, some people call the Akashic records like the database of your soul. It's like the Google of your soul, where you can connect to your guides and ask them about anything about you.
Is it SEO optimized?
It is. Thank you. I'm going to say that it is definitely soul SEOs optimized.
Love it.
It's really a way to connect to your soul guides and to ask them to help you live your best life, live your best potential. And the guides are there to clarify your direction, but not to predict or to impose or say, this is your path and this is your destiny. It's more a sense of how can we co-create your journey of life together from the perspective of your soul and what your soul can offer you and help you with. And so really, when you learn to access the Akashic records, you're learning to connect to the energy of your guides, who are then going to impart wisdom and guidance and insight for you. And the energy of the records, because it is in a higher realm of love and truth, means that you're getting very loving, kind, supportive energy that you feel different. And it never is there to be predictive or psychic or to tell you anything that would not be for your good. Like it's not going to be, unless the reader is really messed up. But there's a high level of integrity and empowerment when you come to the records. And anyone has the ability to access their own guides. People do it, through journaling, through meditation, through prayer. Usually the Akashic records are accessed through a personal prayer that you set and write. And now I teach the Akashic records, how to read your own, how to read the records of others, and other things of that nature. There's so much you can do in the records: healing, guidance, support, so much. And you can download entire bodies of work in there, which is what I did. So in any event, working with the records, really working on the soul level, was the piece that was the missing piece for me, that I didn't know was the missing piece. And then I shifted out of health coaching and realized that my gift in the records was working with business owners and helping them design and build and grow soul-informed businesses. But there are people in the records that do healing, that focus on so many different things. This is my lane.
I mean, it's a tool, right? Like it's not.
It's a tool like anything
and
else.
A tool looks different regarding who is using it, who is using it for what. Like it's shapeless. Yes. It's a tool.
And it is also a deep, profound space for spiritual growth and development, for sure. You will grow spiritually as a result of connecting to your soul, which is the infinite energy of you and an energy of love and truth. So it was this all describes about 25 years, what I'm kind of describing here, give or take.
That's a good elevator pitch for sure.
Yeah, I've been a coach now for 12 years, 3 to 4 as a health coach, and then switching into business and leadership coaching today. There's definitely been a journey, and it's been a very hard journey because I've always been crippled with self-doubt. I'm sure that there were some trauma-informed issues that led to perfectionism and fear of
Yeah.
visibility. And of all things, here I am feeling drawn to spiritual work, which has its own set of stigmas and perceptions. Oh, you're too woo, you're too this. Imagine me in New York City in a networking event saying, oh, I read the Akashic records. Can you just imagine that? Like, or down at a Wall Street event, like I couldn't say that. People would be like, what? You have 5 heads? What the hell, Akashic? What?
Yeah, people are still getting used to like what is a life coach. So let's go easy on them.
So of course, you learn that, like I help people, build businesses. So you got to really kind of come at it from a language that they can understand. So it took a while, but I'm not sure. Sometimes I wonder, would I have done anything differently? I don't know if I could have, because I was so curious to see what I could create on this level, and it's been beautiful. Like I have my book, I have an entire body of work, I have hundreds of hours, guiding people in their records to live a life of purpose and fulfillment and meaning and prosperity. It's been a very hard and a very rewarding journey at the same time.
Yes, I agree. It's hard, but the rewards are there, even if you might not immediately feel they're available to you. You really is sitting here and say it's hard, right? Because we hear so many stories of apparent overnight successes, and it's like, well, good for you if that was your story, but most of our stories look a bit different. And I love what you said, that after your first like fashion accessory business failed or didn't fly, like it took you 5 years, like it took you quite a few years to kind of like regroup and rebuild trust in your abilities to run a business too.
Yes, I realized that I definitely didn't want a product-based business because of all the inventory at the time that, and all the, and I did so many craft fairs and I would, carry these huge pieces of luggage up the New York subway and all different kinds of places. And I was like, this is not what I envisioned. I have a much, here I had ideas of going online to the online shopping shows, and I'm like, I'm lugging, this is not it. I always dreamed big. I always had big visions of what I could accomplish. It just the gap I couldn't close for whatever reason.
Maybe it wasn't yours. It wasn't meant to be.
Well,
or
if I'm here to elevate consciousness, I guess I could do it in the fashion industry, which I'm sure with its neuroses could help benefit from it. But I just don't think it was the most aligned. I didn't feel aligned with the industry at all. I thought people were weird and rude, and my experience really wasn't a positive one.
Nope. No room for that.
But it was good because it really got me to explore entrepreneurship and what I liked about it. And I realized that I really did like entrepreneurship. I liked building things from scratch. I liked building things of my own. And I think the double-edged sword in that it was this feeling of it builds my ego. It satisfies me that I built it. I did it. But as we know in business, it's often a collaborative effort, right? It's not about us. We need to detach enough to let the business take its own shape and form. And so I would get too attached because if things weren't going well, my sense of identity and worth was too involved and too entangled in the business success. And that was a big lesson that I had to learn, even in this business, was, am I willing to let the business have its own journey, and for me to be the visionary or the steward of that without being the controller of it,
and without letting its success define who you are and what you like.
Yes. Yes. And that was a big thing, because when there's old trauma, sense of, I think too often we, without even realizing, our sense of identity, value, success and worthiness, deservedness are entangled in whatever creation we have. And that's understandable and normal. But the problem is then that means that we become highly attached and dependent to whether, if something doesn't, like, if I'm 10 pounds lighter, I feel good. If I'm 10 pounds heavier, I feel bad. Like we're again depending on something external to us to determine how good we feel about ourselves. And that's always usually not a great proposition. So I had to really look at, am I willing to do this work no matter what? Am I willing to stay committed to it and to the journey it wants to take, no matter where it takes me, no matter where it goes? And that's been a process really of trusting the process versus, oh, maybe I'll just go get a job and this is not what I imagined, this is not what I wanted. And it's really, more and more now I'm, because every business has a consciousness, every business has a soul of its own, or an Akashic records of its own. So you can connect to the energy of your business. You don't need to be in their Akashic records to know. Just connect to the energy of your business and ask, hey, business, what do you want? What do you want to create today? Where do you want to go? What would you have me do? And listening to what the business wants feels a little scary.
Yeah, versus maybe what you want.
Yeah, I want, because I can control it and I decided that's better. And so right now I am very much actively, after years of resisting, connecting to the energy of my business, because for only 11 minutes a day, because if I try to make it any longer, I don't connect. B, I make it bigger than it needs to be. And so it's been really interesting to see what my business wants for me. It wants me to go play. It actually wants me to go do other things. And of course, my logical brain is like, you are out of your mind. You just need to tell you what to do. But, I think, but again, this higher energy can see beyond what we can see in that very linear way.
Yeah.
So it's been really a practice of devotion and surrender and commitment and releasing the reins at the same time, expanding the possibilities.
How did you start that process of like letting loose, detaching?
Well, it came from the pain of realizing that if my sense of identity was linked to anything outside of me, that I would never be really happy.
Yes.
That I was putting way too much pressure on it, whatever the it is, my body, a relationship, a business, a job, a career.
Yes. Oh God. I'm so happy that you say that. I see that so often, especially in a bit more experienced entrepreneurs, that they put all their might, all their meaning into their business. And I don't know, if it goes well, then they feel great. Yeah, that's lovely. But ever so often when anything happens, it completely crushes everything around them.
Well, and it can also mean that you really kind of I've seen people go into subsistence levels. I was talking to someone a few months ago, and she was really kind of barely getting by at all, because she was determined, there's this mentality that if my business is my purpose, then I have to make it work at all costs. But there comes a moment of reevaluation. Like, do you have like basic survival needs? Are you not really enjoying your life? If things aren't moving forward, could it be an opportunity to pivot, to maybe do take some part-time work? I think there's this notion that if I don't make money from my business, then it's a hobby, or then I'm a failure, then all these things. But you don't know what path you're being asked to take and how that can shape you. But if you insist that it's got to be this way and the money has to come only through my business, and this is the only way for me to prove and show that I'm committed, I think that's a faulty thing that especially can happen in the coaching world, that can really screw up our minds and also our bank accounts, let people really go into a lot more debt and really not take care of themselves in the process as well. Because money is available through multiple and infinite resources. It's not just through a business or your business, at least at a certain period of time. And so to say no to money, sometimes maybe that is the right choice for some people. But I think it's time to have that honest conversation. What do I really need right now? What will support me and what will support the business? And that means kind of, again, detaching the claws of control and attachment to look at things from a wider, healthier perspective.
Yes, I love that, because I remember when I started out, the first 6 months were like, holy fuck, this is awesome. And then I'm like, oh, okay, so this is now the valley of despair. And like all the shitty feelings were like, hello. And I was really like, okay, if I feel like my back is to the wall, I will not make the decisions that are right for me and my business in the long term. So how can I get myself away from the wall again? Like, what does it need? And for me, that was taking on a part-time job, like a job where I'm not stressed, not worried, clock in, clock out, fair enough. Like, and had still loads of time to build a business slowly in a way I wanted to, without like that added pressure of this must work or else. Because that energy, it's a lot to handle if you're constantly with every day, every week, you're like, this must work or else. It's a lot to handle. A lot of shitty feelings.
It is. And that's, burnout, adrenal fatigue, anxiety. Like that's what can easily come out of perpetual pressure, self-imposed or external terrorizing situations, And so I think it's important to always ask, what does my body need? What does my bank account need? What does my business need to really thrive and be okay? And that can shift, week to week, month to month, year to year.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's allowed to shift. It's supposed to shift.
Yes, it has a life and an energy all of its own. And being able to honor that, maybe like with a child, I don't have children, like to honor that they have their own path, that they have their own wisdom, that it has its own desires. Then you become the steward. You don't become like the taskmaster of the business. I know best. No, you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially you have no control. Like I always, that usually like the control thing usually comes up when I talk with my clients about, okay, what kind of goals do you set? Like what kind of goals do you have in mind when we're working together? They usually have what I call like lack goals, right? Like goals that are ultimately out of their control. Like, oh, I want to have like 100K launch, or I want to have like a 200K year or whatever. And ultimately you have no control over who is actually buying. You can only control what effort you are putting in and kind of like what you building that leads up to whatever it is you want. But it's ultimately about letting go of that control. It's not ultimately up to you. And it's hard for a lot of people to be like, well, but I'm building this. And especially in a coaching world where we have service-based businesses that are so tied to our personality, and we're building these personal brands, and then at the same time we're like, well, but now you got to detach from that.
Yeah, that's why I think kind of really being in communion with the energy and the spirit of your business and your own soul and what they want can keep you connected to a feeling, right? Because every goal, I believe, has an embedded desired feeling, right? So if you think 200K is going to be your magic number, what is the feeling?
Yes.
I think that's going to give you freedom, a feeling of success.
And what is the story you will tell yourself about yourself to be true or not true if you get that?
Exactly. And so that whole notion of, can I be happy now? Can I embrace who I am now? That's the deeper, harder inner work. And that's the one that I hate hearing. I remember when I was single, people would say, you have to love yourself before you can love someone else. And I was like, I hate that crap. I don't want to do that. I just want somebody to love me and for that to be it. I just want to be successful so that I can be successful and just stop worrying about money and all these things and hate marketing and whatever. But at the end of the day, we have access to these feelings that we can give ourselves and to cultivate now through gratitude and appreciation as we aim for more. I'm all for more. I'm all for ambition. I'm all for the sky is the limit. I'm never telling someone, if you want to be a multimillionaire, don't be a multimillionaire. I'm asking, what is the motivation? What are the drivers behind you wanting to do that? Is that so that you can prove something to yourself and to the world, which is fine? Is that because you really want to impact a greater change in the world? Is it like, what are the true, genuine motivations? Because if it's only to a sense of proving and feeling like a sense of safety that you'll get from having more or being more, chances are you're building it on like a stack of cards, right? That's very flimsy and it can fall.
Yeah, one gush of wind and it's like,
again, it's based on external markers versus internal feelings that you can have for yourself. And so that's the harder inner work to to be done? What is the motivating factor? What are the motivating factors behind your goals, right? I believe a desire, when it's true, it's pure. You just know you would like to have it. Your brain isn't involved. It's a feeling that kind of encompasses you and it feels really good. But goals that are brainy or that are more externally driven, for me at least, they feel more hollow. They don't feel as nurturing or nourishing. When I wrote my book and I published it this year, I did the book fully with joy, and it was such a satisfying, beautiful, because how people say, write a book and then you'll become an authority in your field and you'll make more money, blah, blah, blah. Those might be nice icings on the cake, but I wrote the book because I knew the book would help people. And I knew I wanted to enjoy the process, and I did, and it has. And the rest will come of it, because again, a book is a creation. It has a consciousness and an energy and a soul unto its own. So I kept communing with the energy of my book to see what it wanted to be. And it was this beautiful and enjoying, happy experience. For the most part, it was work, but it was happy work. It wasn't soul crushing. I got to do this in order to
pushing chapters out, or
and that's the thing, right? If you're following the scenic route, right? If you're going to be choosing the path less traveled, which is likely what your listeners are, right? If you've done the formulas and they haven't worked, if you're sick and tired of being either shamed or ridiculed or made to feel dumb because even though you're super smart and you work really hard.
And you're a high achiever, because most my people are. Like,
we're super high achievers. We're super smart. We know how to work. We've been around the block. We've invested more than we could probably say. So the point is that there's nothing wrong with us. We have to stop listening to all this bullshit, and we have to start giving more credence and space to what our inner ecosystem, our intuition, our soul, our desires are speaking to. Right? I always tell people our desires are our soul whispering to us, right? True desires are pure.
You have your desire because it's not a flimsy thing. You have it because it has a meaning to it, right? It's not just...
it has a purpose.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just like, oh, I don't know, someone rolled the dice and now that's your desire.
And the beauty of doing soul work is that oftentimes what I hear people say is that I'm validating what they already know. I'm not telling them necessarily something, in terms of the direction of the business or their role in the business or what needs to happen, both in terms of the nitty-gritty mechanics of it to the energetics and the overall purpose of the business. I'm usually telling them what they already know, but there's a way that the soul communicates, right? There's this way in how it's conveyed that really lands as true, right? That it lands as deeply validating. And from that space, the person can say, okay, now I have the courage, now I have the deeper clarity, I have the deeper conviction, I have the deeper strength to go and actually follow that path, which I know is mine to walk on, but that is most likely goes against the grain of what everyone has told you, and that really allows you to... A soul-driven business is a business that honors your health, your sanity, your pocketbook, and your sense of purpose, in my mind.
Yes.
It's holistic success, right? And that truly is alignment of all of it. And so if you go from that perspective, look at your business now and say, how much is my business supporting my bank account? How much is it supporting my well-being?
What is serving and what is not?
What is not? And so then there are opportunities to do tweaks or pivots in there, not necessarily throwing everything out the window. Last week I had a client and she's been...
If you must burn it to the ground, feel like you must burn it to the ground.
You must. And that's the case. I had a client this week and she is just really pretty much done with her business. And her line of business would be one that would be ordinarily, especially in our times of mental health issues, really successful. And it hasn't been for her. And what came through in her session really was about her taking a significant pivot, staying in the healing world as a mystic, but in a completely different arena that would be deeper and ancestral healing and all these things. And she said, none of what you're telling me is different, but it is a completely different path and configuration of a business and what she has created. And that is really her soul's expression. That is really where she's being called to go. And it's a stretch, it's a real stretch for her because she would have to close down what she's done and embark on something different, not knowing how she's going to make the money, how she's going to build all of it out, what the gifts are within that realm. but it was a starting point to get her moving in that direction. It was like, here's the point in the map for you to focus on, and then we'll guide you from there. So it's really, it can be really beautiful when you listen to the soul of your business and what it really has to say. It's not a fluke. It's not a side note. It really is the core essence of who you are and what the business wants to create in the world.
Ooh.
But it takes time, and it takes trust to believe in yourself and to believe in what you're being given, because it doesn't provide certainty.
Yeah, that's such a good point, right? Like, I mean, there's rightly so a lot of conversation about intuition and following your intuition and so on. But I love that you said self-trust, because I found that a lot of people, they have to start with trusting themselves more or again to actually be able to be like, yeah, okay, I hear this voice and I trust it enough to accept it, to commit, to let it in, and to like execute with it in mind.
It's a daily practice, right? Because our mind can go, is this really my fear? Is this my ego? Is this my intuition? There can be resistance because your mind is like, oh, this doesn't make sense. This is not familiar.
Oh, ego talk.
Danger, danger. I don't think that, I'm not one to bash the ego at all. I think every part of us, fear, ego, they all have a purpose. But
oh God, they all have, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's also just a matter of being able to discern how much of this is going to be helpful. I truly believe that business is a beautiful spiritual guide and teacher to show us, old patterns and habits and stories and narratives that we've had about us, money, all the things.
Those were all a lot of shitty feelings that came up in my entrepreneurial journey that I did not expect. Yes. If someone would have told me 6 years ago, you can start your own business, but be prepared to deal with a lot of your own shit, I would be like, oh, okay, I'll be fine. And I am fine. You'll always be fine. But man, there was a lot of things coming up. I mean, the usual scarcity mindset. Obviously, we have it in some form or another. Childhood trauma. Like there was
self-doubt.
Oh God, yes.
Fear, money stuff, debt, mistakes that we make, investments that didn't pan out, clients that are difficult.
What was the biggest mistake you made? One where you totally fucked up.
Actually, I know this is going to sound odd, but I've never had spent a ton of money on a coach and not it be the right one. Yeah. I've never spent thousands of dollars on launches and have it not go. I will say that I wish that my journey hadn't been so painful for this long, but every part was needed to help me get to where I was. Yeah. I didn't have any major crash and burn scenarios. I had some embarrassing scenarios, like sometimes I would pay for something, I didn't have enough money in my bank account, or I had to have my family bail me out, or there was always a lot of shame, especially around money. I didn't feel like I made big mistakes so much as I felt a lot of shame around I should be further on by now, or I should have made more money.
Oh God, yes. Everyone is probably now like nodding. How like that insane notion of we should be further ahead than we are.
Well, because I think we going in the scenic route means that we haven't taken the express highway. We're not on the HOV lane, right? We're not on the express lane. And so that means that, we live in a society of rules and regulations around money, and so what you say for retirement. And it feels like you either are on the HOV lane of money and tracks and success, or you're not. And it feels like very much a black and white scenario. And that can really mess up our heads in the process, I find. And so for me, it was always the shame of, success was related to a certain amount of money. Doesn't mean that I haven't made money every year in my business. By no stretch, I have, but it was never as much as I would have liked. And so that really did screw me up a lot in terms of my sense of self, my sense of purpose, and it made me question my path a lot. I had to untangle these notions that, money could only come through one place, through the business, versus multiple avenues. And I had to even be willing at that point to say, if my contribution in the world is best suited outside a business model, I am okay with that. And for me to be able to genuinely tell you I would be okay with that took years because I needed to look a certain way in order for me to prove certain narratives about myself and the world and money and, and all the things. So it's not easy. So I don't think I've made some really big mistakes because investments were discerned, they're well thought out, and they were really positive ones. They really were. And I spent thousands and thousands, between trainings and courses and business coaches, and they were all valuable. But it was the shame. The shame was the tough part. And the doubt, because there is a huge opportunity cost if you look at it from a sense, right? Potentially if you were working somewhere else. So I think there was a big sense of, gosh, have I really made the best decision to keep going? And I evaluate the decision every year. Is it still the best course for me? I think not staying attached to things is really important, to evaluate the energy, to evaluate your priorities, to evaluate your health and family life. Like, what do you need, like, to be whole and happy and sane and abundant? And that can change year to year. I had a friend she said she felt shame to me this week because she really took a conscious sabbatical, to take really beautiful life events happen to her, and they were great. But she consciously chose to take a step back and take care of herself and all these things. And she's like, but when somebody asked me how many clients I had, she said, I felt really ashamed. I was like, but you took a conscious sabbatical. I don't understand, And so I think it's just understanding that, each year, each cycle, each season of life is a different thing.
Yes, and honoring
so just to be a robot, yes, they all got to produce. No, you've got a life, a whole life with health and family and desires and dreams and hiccups. And we need space to heal. We need space to integrate. We need space to reevaluate, And if it's okay if someone can do all those things and still make $1 gazillion, great for them. But you are you. So you've got to stay in your own fucking lane. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest message for you. You've got to stay in your own lane. You can admire other people, take what you want.
God, yes. There's always admiration, but focus on the path you're on and you want to be on. Because ultimately, it's the path you're going to walk. And the other people you look up to, they're not walking your path. You also don't know, and that's a part of the online business world that also kind of bugs me. You never know what everyone is dealing with, and it's okay, right? Like, you just, I don't know, you always see just the highs on social media.
Yeah, you don't see all the things at the lows, health scares, family issues, death. I mean, there's so much. And I personally haven't really fully recovered mentally from the pandemic. And I don't think many of us have fully, from the extent of the terror and the fear and the isolation.
The unknown and
the fact that the world feels different. At least to me, it does. It doesn't feel the same.
It does.
Like that sense of innocence. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't. Or my mind and my nervous system hasn't been able to fully just be happy-go-lucky the way I used to be.
I feel like our nervous system, every time I don't know, I'm in a bus or in a bigger crowded space, my nervous system is like, you're always kind of like, oh, danger, ooh, like it hasn't self-regulated with some aspect of public life, I feel.
And a friend of mine said this, she was doing an intuitive reading for me. I do something called theta healing, which is really powerful but soft. And she said this week, but just remember, your nervous system has been dysregulated for quite a while now. And I was like, oh, yes. And then I did an evaluation of how many times I went to the emergency room just this year alone, all the repairs we had to do in our house, the fact that I live in a completely different area than a year ago, launches and family issues and deaths of friends and family. Like, those are no small things. And every month there's been something. And I haven't quite found my yoga studio. I haven't found my happy nature spots, And so I think sometimes when we're like, why do I feel this way? Sometimes it might not be a bad idea just to do a quick list of what's happened month to month in my life that could be causing this. And sometimes you just don't need a reason. If you feel off, you feel off.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Like, sometimes I also feel there's also shame around that, like where I sometimes have people like clients or people or friends talk to me like, oh, no one died, I don't know, but I still feel bad, or I still feel dysregulated. Yes, like there is no ranking of trauma, there is no hierarchy, there is no prize to win. Like, whatever sends your body into a trauma response is deeply personal. And it can be, for me, could be something minor. It can be something big for someone else. Like there's no hierarchy and classification of big. Like if your body reacts, then it's big for you. Full stop.
Yes. And that's it. Compound that with anything else that was still lingering pre-pandemic that might not have been handled. It's a lot. People are going through a lot collectively, individually in their lives. And, learning to handle grief and fear and unknown in different ways. And to become familiar with ourselves when we realize that we just feel different. Like, who am I now? Those are not simple questions.
Ooh, I don't know. That's never an easy question. Right? Because we wear so many hats and we are so many things to so many different people, and we want to be even more to ourselves and to the people we love. And
well, it comes down to what's the truth for you. Truth with a capital T, the undeniable. I always tell people the truth is simple. It's not easy.
Yes.
The truth isn't complicated, right? The truth is, if you're not really happy in a situation, you're not. Yeah. So the question is, do you want to tolerate it? How much could you even tolerate it if you wanted to? Is that the best choice? Or is it time to make difficult but important pivots?
Yeah, or even the tolerate question, because I feel it's a tricky one, because most of us, we are too good at tolerating shitty things.
Yeah, especially if you have, trauma in your life, which most of us has, that means that we have a much higher threshold, I find, for pain and for pushing through and just plowing through. And so one of the questions I ask my clients often is, what are you tolerating, right? And from the little things to, my fridge door doesn't close to...
I do the same.
Yes. And so that gets us to thinking about that. But some people aren't ready to make the shift. And then when I ask them, how much capacity do you have to tolerate staying where you are? That's when they go, oh God, like I can't even think like one more.
Like none, like sub-zero.
Well, then, okay, then. So then you need to have a little heart to heart with yourself about what let's break down the fear. Let's break down the steps of what it will take to make those changes. Reminding you that alignment will always get you to a better place than where you are now, right? Sinking yourself into a hole of continued misalignment will never get you where you want to go. It'll just get you deeper in a hole of going against yourself or betraying yourself,
Yeah. And so ultimately it's your way inward is your path forward.
Always. I love that. The way inward is the path forward.
I actually have to write it down. It's really good.
It's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, kudos to you. Snap, snap, snap.
Yeah, like, okay, like mic drop. No, but it's really it. Like, I feel this has been like part fireside chat, part coaching session. I'm like, there's a lot of things I also like. There were a lot of new thoughts that sparked, and I'm like, I gotta process, I gotta think. I put on my thinking cap, get my thinking chair, and be like, I have to think, I have to process.
Yeah, let it percolate and integrate for sure. I like to go deep. I don't like to mess around.
That's my kind of woman, I tell you. Like, yep.
This is our life. This is our sense of joy. And that's so precious. Yes. And it's something that is within our control. And that means regulating what we need regulated, listening to what needs to be listened, honoring what needs to be honored, and going way more inward so that we can go further, forward.
That we can inward, that we can go forward. Seriously, that's like new headline website. Like, that's like done. Right? Like, you're like, yes, that's it. So so if you ever ask yourself what branding people do, that's what branding people do. No, but like, tell me, if someone wants to go hard and go deep with you, where can they find you online?
Yeah, PriscillaStephan.com. I have a free 3-minute quiz to help you identify your soul leadership archetype. There are 5. I also have my book, The Soul Fluent Leadership Business Guide, that helps you how to build a business around your innate soul level gifts, which is your archetype. So that's also on my website.
Okay, so quiz first, book second.
Unless you really want to go to but the book also has the quiz.
Okay, fair enough. So you can just.
And my specialty is working with established soul-driven women who are mostly service-based, coaches, consultants, attorneys, bookkeepers, CEOs of conscious businesses. And I help them grow sustainable and profitable businesses that are actively changing the world to make it a better place.
I love that. Priscilla, thank you so much for spending time with me on the Scenic Route podcast. It has been a great joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. We had some kick-ass moments here and some insights.
Yeah, light bulbs. I'm like, yes.
The way inward is the path forward.
Seriously, I cannot believe how fucking amazing this is.
Yes, Jennifer Walter, that's it. Yes. Do I have your permission to give you credit for that? And I can share it?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm saying yes. I'm ready to say yes. I'm taking that with credit to you.
It's a good throat chakra. Yes.
Thank you so much. And to all of you listening, trust your path, trust your way, stay in your own lane, and don't ever compromise. Compromising sucks.
Yes. Beautiful words. Thank you so much, Priscilla.
Thank you so much for listening to the Scenic Route podcast. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode and that you can take something from it that feels right to you. I'd be so grateful if you could share the Scenic Route podcast with others. As always, you can head over to scenicroutepodcast.com to check out all the links and resources from today's episode. Oh, and while you're there, don't forget to download my free email course, Intuitive Branding Invitation, to teach you how you can successfully tune into your own brand frequency and rediscover your brand's unique gifts, strengths, and talents. So thanks again. Talk soon.